Welcome to Inland Edition, where this season we're having conversations with people representing nonprofit organizations working to make the Inland Empire a better place. My name is Joe Richardson. I'm a local attorney, an Inland Empire resident, and your host. And today we're going to chat with Joe Maynor, the director of the River's Edge Ranch. Located in the Lucerne Valley, River's Edge Ranch provides comprehensive and innovative services in a unique desert setting for men suffering from drug and alcohol addiction, chronic unemployment, homelessness, or incarceration. Their approach integrates manual labor, animal-assisted therapy, service to others, faith, and mentoring support. Joe Maynor completed the River's Edge program himself as a rancher in 2013, which he credits with enabling him to reunite with his family and gain a satisfying purpose in life. While as the ranch director, he's responsible for day-to-day operations on the ranch and managing the ranch's budget, he believes his most important responsibility is counseling the men working through the program. Let's meet him now and learn more about how River's Edge affects our community. So from River's Edge Ranch, I've got Joe Maynor. Joe, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for having me today.
It's always easier when there are, well, it's not so much easy for the staff, but for me when the other guy's named Joe, too. So that way I can't mess it up.
You're welcome. I thank my mother, yeah.
Right. I love to talk about how one's journey ultimately has them converge with the nonprofit and incidentally, the nonprofit's mission. So let's talk about Joe Maynor and how Joe Maynor evolved to this place where he comes across River's Edge Ranch.
Absolutely. Well, I was born and raised in Ventura, and from two wonderful parents that were always provided. It was a very loving home. I have a younger sister, and growing up, I had a great childhood. Like I said, everything was provided. My family was there. And then about 12, 13 years old, I started smoking weed and using drugs recreationally. And then that kind of skyrocketed to a deeper addiction into harder drugs, which took me on just a crazy spiral of jails, homelessness, different treatment facilities, and just about 14 years of addiction. And I was actually sitting in a jail cell, and my aunt heard about a place in the desert that, is a treatment facility that works with animals. And she sent me some literature, and I remember receiving it while I was in jail. And I remember looking at it like, I'm not going there. A ranch, out in the middle of nowhere. Like, that's not what I want, I knew I wanted a change. I knew I needed a change. I was ready to stop using drugs and alcohol, and that, with that comes the lifestyle as well, just really to get all of that behind me. But the component that really tripped me out was the spiritual part. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a guy that was connected with a God or anything like that. And so that's kind of what turned me off. But while I'm sitting there, something kept tugging on my heart, like, you need to go here. Right. You need to try something different. You've done the traditional treatment facilities. You've done, obviously, being incarcerated to homelessness, all that junk that comes with that. You need something different. And so that is how I ended up at the ranch. I wrote back to my aunt. I said, okay, I'll try it. And I got released. My father picked me up in downtown LA at MCJ and took me up to the ranch. And I remember pulling on that property and being like, where am I? What is this place? Right. What am I doing? What did you get yourself into? I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere, right. Like literally middle of nowhere. But something was weighing on my heart, like, you need to be here. Right. This is the place. And I started in the program. I went through the program. And
right.
yeah, it was difficult. You know, I got no problem doing the work aspect, you know,
Sure.
pig pens, horse stalls, tractor work, trench digging, stuff like the labor aspect of the ranch, the work aspect, I had no problem. I mean,
Right.
I loved it.
Right.
It was the spiritual component, the praying, the praise and worship, the alone time. You know, reading this book, I've never, you know, I've heard of the Bible, I've never read it, I've never wanted to read it, but that part was the component that I was missing was the relationship with God. There was the previous director, or the director that was there now. His name was Big Al Aceves, and he was the founder, one of the founders of the Mongols Motorcycle Club.
Wow.
And you know, he gave his life to Christ 10 years before. He's been in prison. I'm sure he's, you know,
Done some stuff.
yeah, a lot of really deep, dark stuff. And so I latched on to him. You know, he's not real literate. He can't read and write very well. So he would have the Bible on tape.
Right.
And so
Wow.
I'd sit in there and he would just say, listen, you know, I'd sit there for an hour and we'd listen, right? I didn't really know what I was listening to. It was going through different books of the Bible. But yeah, just the relationship I built with him is what kept me there.
So tell me about the profile of the rancher, the one that's going to come to the ranch. Are they on probation and this is in lieu of jail? Is it something that they make a choice to do? Where do you draw from?
Everywhere, the whole spectrum. So, like you said, Joe, guys that are, you know, in lieu of a prison term, right? So we have a lot of guys that are on probation. They're probation officers. You know, the ranch is very well known through those agencies. Men that are in the court system, you know, word of mouth, through church services, through outreach programs. I mean, there's not one exactly, like one point that's bigger than, they're all about the same. But it's definitely individuals, men that are, you know, down that path of addiction that are going to lead to, probably imprisonment or death.
So you are specifically tasked with helping those that are really trying to fight addiction.
Absolutely. We are 100% a substance abuse facility. Now, with substance abuse comes lots of other addictions, right? You know, it could be pornography, gambling. There's a whole array of addictions that come with that. The lifestyle change, you know. Some of the men, you know, have you know, struggled with even, you know, their identity. Lots of different issues that come with mental issues, you know, mental health issues. You know, I think a lot of mental health issues come with your, come with the drug addiction, right? And so trying to combat that as well. So, yeah, the men that come in are pretty jacked up, you know, and we like that. We want you to come in jacked up.
How many people are there?
I have 37 guys right now. We're at full capacity with a waiting list.
Right, wow. And what about staffing?
So staffing up until a year ago was just myself.
Really? Whoa.
It was just me. I have leadership. You know, we like to raise leadership within.
Right.
We really we stand firm on that. You know, guys that have been through the program, they understand it, and they have a heart for this ministry.
Sure.
But up until a year ago, it was actual staff was just myself. In the past year, we've been able to add an assistant director. His name is Tyler Logan. And then as well as a facilities manager, Troy Shaw. And we're looking to actually, in the next couple weeks, add about 3 more staff members.
So tell me how big the property is and what's on the property.
So the ranch itself, there's the ranch that's in Lucerne Valley, that's 20 acres. And then it's in an unincorporated San Bernardino County, which they still classify as Lucerne Valley, right? And then in the actual city of Lucerne, we have another piece of property, which is 3 acres. That's our phase 2 property, where there's 3 prefab homes. And in those homes, I have 14 men in one house. Tyler Logan, the assistant director, stays in the middle cabin. Troy has the other house with about 4 other leads. But the ranch itself is 20 acres.
Tell me about an average day for what can a rancher expect to do on average day?
Lots of stuff. Wake up time is 3 a.m. Breakfast, breakfast is at 4 a.m. You know, the men file into our chow hall. Right now it's extremely packed, 37 guys. We all fit in that chow hall. So the guys have breakfast. After breakfast, they go out, and we have 22 horses. So the men tend to the horse stalls first. That's job number 1. The guys will have a partner with them, and they'll share a horse, and that'll be their horse for the entire stay of the ranch. And so this is where animal therapy comes into play. This is where you're building relationships and bonding with not just the animal, but with this other individual that's in treatment with you that might not see eye to eye or, you know, come from a different background than you. And so everything we do, you're building relationship. These men are, like, you know, 4 a.m., they're in the break. I mean, they're so close together at all times. And then from there, there's about 5 to 6 hours of ranch pickup, you know, cows, water lines, tractoring, water runs. We have different RO systems on site. I have men that are strictly that take care of our bunkhouse. They take care of the main house. I have 2 cooks on. So it's definitely, the men are working, you know. And then about 9:30, they cut out. We head into our chapel. We have a praise report, prayer requests. You know, we conduct a little bit of business, just kind of see where everybody's at. They go in for lunch at 11, and then after that, they have some free time. And in that free time, we really encourage, you know, the men that haven't opened their Bible, or, you know, we have different programs too. There's Celebrate Recovery, Army of Love. We do telehealth services. And so during that time, they might have some homework or catch up on some stuff. And then we have an afternoon study from 1 to 2, which is given by a member of the home after their 6 months.
Yeah.
And from there, afternoon feed, come back in for some more free time. Then they got dinner, and then praise and worship, and then they have a night study. So the day starts 3 a.m. and doesn't end until about 7:30 at night.
Wow.
And then they cut out, and then, the Phase 2 property I mentioned, 14, 15 guys go over there, and they're there strictly just to shower, sleep, and then they hike back to the ranch.
How are you funded?
The ranch right now, for our operating expenses, is solely by donations, people that sow into the ministry.
Okay.
We do work with a couple large organizations, the McMillan Foundation, as well as San Manuel Band of Mission Indians,
Okay, great.
and Slaves of Nothing and In-N-Out Burger, which we built relationships over the past 6 years with them. We actually had Evan Ellingson, who is since passed. His brother is married to Lindsay Snyder, who's the sole owner of In-N-Out Burger.
Right.
Went through our ranch program, which helped us get connected with Slaves to Nothing, which is their foundation nonprofit that they solely support human trafficking as well as substance abuse programs. So I'd say the majority of our funding is definitely from people that sow into the ministry, and then some of the fundraisers we have throughout the year. We have a large gala, April 19th. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. But yeah, it's people that sow into that ministry.
How long is the average stay for a rancher?
Well, they need to commit to a year minimum, but I would say if we're looking at numbers, probably 6 months, when they feel they're ready.
Right.
Which is, they're not.
Right.
It's a year for a reason.
Right.
I prefer 2 years,
Right.
When they're 6, 7, 8 months in, these guys are their plane's just beginning to land.
Yeah, for sure.
Some of these guys have been on the streets for 10, 15 years. Some have been in prison for 20 years.
Right.
And to come in and think in 6 months you're ready for life is a mistake. We don't try to downplay that or talk down. It's just like, you're not ready, man.
Do you have programs that continue to connect them to services after they leave?
Absolutely. So the process of the ranch, they come to the ranch, they get through the program. We sit down and talk with them after a year and a half. And then they move into our transitional program, which is called Third Phase, where we have a couple houses down in Fontana, California, which has very similar structure to the ranch.
Okay.
So they're still in mentorship programs. They're still in telehealth services, which is the clinical side to addiction, right? Where they're learning relapse prevention, cognitive therapy, behavioral issues. They're meeting with counselors, still having one-on-ones, as well as Celebrate Recovery, which is every Friday night at Water of Life, which is a faith-based approach to the normal 12-step program. So we try to instill in them the importance of a structure, right? Because they come in without one. I came in without one. Mine was upside down, backwards.
Sure.
It was all jacked up, right? And so you're building this structure of good, clean, healthy habits that you want to take with you in life, And so we pray and hope that they get enough education there that, you know, and also the want, and also they know they need this, that they take that with them when they leave.
Yeah.
You know, for so on and so on, because this is all temporary.
Right.
The ranch is temporary.
Right.
The different phases are temporary. At some point, you're going to want to have a family and have your own house and
Right.
and move on to your own, you know,
Right.
get your life going. Right.
Right.
So.
But are there certain metrics by which you measure success? You know, recidivism, or, you know, what are the things that you look at that, of course, even a potential donor or someone that's interested in the organization, what you're doing, look at in terms of how you measure success?
Our goal is to get men off drugs and alcohol. So that's number one. And as soon as we get to that part, then we can figure out, you know, where you're at, you know, obviously your mental state, your mature state, right? Your emotional state. So success can be measured differently, sure. You know, some men come out of there just busting at the seams. They're ready for life, you know. Guys that are, you know, Bradley's one of our graduates who's very intelligent young man, right? And he's doing phenomenal, you know. And then, you know, some guys are they're a little, they take a little more time, you know.
Right.
But success for us is somebody that is coming in and getting off drugs and alcohol, right? Getting a new lease on life, you know, finding out who God is, right? And getting implemented back into society, whether it be, you know, a high-paying job or not a high-paying job. It's somebody, you know, that came in that didn't have any of this stuff. So success to me is the guy coming in and being restored.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, is what the ranch is for.
Speaking of success, let's talk to two ranchers as well as a board member who's a former rancher himself.
My name is Rick Martinez, and I am on the board of directors, and I oversee our transitional housing. When the guys graduate from the ranch, they all transition into our sober livings, and I oversee those houses. I got to the ranch in 2015. I was homeless, addicted to many different drugs, and I hadn't worked in about 6 years. When I got to the ranch, I quickly found out that it was a working ranch, that they required us to do a lot of different tasks, working with animals, cleaning stalls, and it was something I needed because I hadn't had that discipline. I hadn't had waking up early and getting a task done. The work aspect and the spiritual aspect was exactly what I needed to find my healing and kind of keep me here and trust the process and trust what the ranch was trying to do. Everything is structured to help men get back into living a lifestyle without drugs. It helps with the selfishness, because when you're in addiction, you become very selfish. You become all about me, me, me. And so what the ranch does is it kind of, even when it comes to the animals, you're focusing on something else that's not you. You're having to take care of their stalls, picked up after them. Now you live with 37 other guys. You're also like, okay, well, this isn't all about me, right? I have to deal with all these different men that are going through the same thing. So it kind of helps you take the focus off yourself and put it somewhere else. The ranch did so much for me that I felt I really wanted to give back in any way I possibly could. So being a leader here on the ranch and then going down to phase 3, becoming a leader down there, and then for them asking me to be on the board, I thought it was just, I was humbled, but it was a true blessing to really be able to give back to what helped me. Because I know the program works. I know the transitional homes are a safe place to go transition back into life. Like, I know they work. So with me knowing they work, having my testimony and how it worked in me, I could share with these other men that there's hope.
Most people don't choose to come here. I thought, I'm not like a lot of these guys. I'm kind of an outlier and an outcast. I felt kind of lonely, and but through this brotherhood and realizing and humbling myself that I've broken just as many relationships. I've messed up my life just as much. This place has kind of given me the hope for a second chance. You know, I tend to the horses. I assist with the pigs. I assist with cows. I just recently started assisting with some repairs and you know, repairing some wheelbarrows and pretty much whatever's needed. I try to help out whenever I'm asked. Being surrounded by this group of brothers, they help keep me accountable. If I don't wake up in time at 3:30, they help get me up, and we all make sure that we go to the dining hall at the same time, and you know, we pray for each other. Also, this ranch is giving me hope for the future. it's odd because I've had a strong support system through my family. My family's always encouraged me, even when I've failed over and over and messed up with, the state of California and had all these consequences. They still have encouraged me in saying, there's a plan, God has a plan for your life, but I didn't want the help. I was kind of the only one in the family that was going through the stuff that I was going through, that was struggling with alcohol, that was getting in trouble all the time. I was kind of felt like the black sheep. So to come here and be with 30 to 40 men that are all just as broken and that are all trying to better their lives, get closer to God, and just see how the Lord can redeem our situations, to be around those men that can understand, that can relate, that are going through similar things or have gone through similar things. It's both inspiring to see the men who have gone through it, and then it's comforting to the men who are currently going through it as well. So it's extremely pivotal.
Okay, well, I cook right here for 35 men, 3 times a day. We try and fix up food that's going to be healthy for us. And my goal with my cooking is that the Lord uses me to help men to want to stay and know that they're getting fed good and just bring joy to them, My name is Ronald Rivera. I'm a cook here at the River's Edge Ranch. My thoughts about the program are that this program is really helpful for somebody that really wants change in their life, as I do. Before, I was lost in darkness, and I've now have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and it's given me more motivation in life and more courage. Don't be afraid to try and do better instead of giving up. Anybody out there that's having a hard time struggling in life, I just want to say, don't give up on yourself, and there is hope.
Give me your wish list about, if you had your druthers from a resource standpoint, here's what we would need to really take this to this next place, or here's something we've talked about, here's something that we know that we want to undertake. I imagine doing what it is that you do, you get the 30,000-foot view about what you have versus what you'd like to have and what you need. What would you put on your wish list?
It's always funding.
Right.
Also, just partners.
Yeah.
People that are in it for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Not all money is good money.
Right. Okay.
So we want partners. We want long-lasting partners. People that have a heart for this type of. You have to.
Right.
Because you go in there and these guys can be mean and rude and not care about nothing. And so you have to have a heart for these guys.
Right.
Our definitely 30,000 foot. What we would love to see is multiple sites.
Right. Sure.
We're building the site now to get to 80 men, and we want to mirror that in other areas, whether it be, we've talked about a women's ranch for 5 years now. It's such a crazy need.
Right, sure.
And a veterans ranch, multiple ranches. We're working on an org chart right now, as well, going to a couple different, some of our partners of, a 10, 15, 20-year plan of where we want to see the ranch.
Yeah.
So definitely, but if people that have a heart for it,
Yeah.
When you have a heart for something, your wallet usually follows, right?
Sure.
So we're not always worried about the money. Money's, you need to worry about the money. And my treasurer does that. If God has given you a vision and you are carrying that vision out, he'll bring all your resources.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it
until
I saw it.
Right,
I saw it, I first began to see that when we transitioned from the other church. We had no money. There was $900 in our bank account. It's at that point, it was $60,000 a month to operate the ranch.
Wow.
I'm sitting there with Al, and I'm like, hey, dude, we don't have any propane. There's no gas in the vans. How are we getting to church?
Right.
He's like, the money will come. And I'm not kidding, it did.
Right.
Checks were showing up.
Right.
People were providing, paying. We used to sell. We have chickens, right? So we used to sell chickens at church. I'm not kidding. There was a Sunday where we had to sell eggs to pay for the gas to get back up the hill.
Right. Wow.
And so God provides a way.
How do people get more information about the organization?
They can go to our website. It's the riversedgeranch.org. Okay. We're on different social media platforms. They can meet us at church. They can come up to the ranch. But our biggest one is definitely going to be our website. It has all our information on there. It's got different, just obviously our events to pictures and videos, testimonials, a lot of information, and how to donate, all kinds of stuff, as well as the application process.
Yeah.
So to enter the ranch, you have to put in an application.
Okay.
So
okay.
Whether you call myself or Tyler or the ranch, we will redirect you to the website.
Okay.
It's about a 60-second application.
Right. Okay.
Basic information. Once that's submitted, somebody from my intake department will call
Yeah.
and go through the phone assessment.
Okay.
And so that's where a lot of, the questions are asked, obviously. You know,
Sure.
your health, your background, legal issues.
All right. So, Joe Maynard from Rivers Edge Ranch, thank you so much for coming, and thank you for what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having
Got
me.
it. And we want to thank you for joining us. Know you can check out our episodes, season 1 and season 2 now, on YouTube. So please continue to join us as we highlight life-changing work being done here in the Inland Empire, one conversation at a time. And until next time, we'll see you. Thanks.